I should have known something was off the second she walked into my office wearing a silk blouse, leather boots, and that smug, infuriating smile that always meant trouble. Vanessa Cole didn't ask for things.
She didn't beg.
She didn't plead. She presented her demands like a CEO at a shareholder meeting and expected you to follow orders. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I always did. You want me to do what? I asked, my voice louder than intended, echoing through the glass walls of my corner office. Vanessa shut the door behind her and leaned against it with casual arrogance, arms folded, manicured nails tapping lightly on her elbow. "Marry me," she said, like she was asking for coffee. I blinked, laughed once. Okay, what the hell is this? I'm serious. That's the problem. She walked toward my desk like a storm in heels and dropped a thick folder in front of me. It landed with a dull thud that made my stomach twist. I didn't open it. I looked at her instead. You're not serious. You know my grandmother, right? The one who owns half of Manhattan? The one who owns all of it emotionally and legally, yes. And you want to marry me to impress her? To shut her up, she corrected, sitting on the edge of my desk like she belonged there. She's been threatening to write me out of the will unless I prove I'm settling down. So, I'm settling. For you. I'm not sure if I'm flattered or insulted. Both. It's part of the charm. Why me? Because you're the only woman I know who can lie with a straight face and won't catch feelings halfway through. Wow. You're also the only one I trust not to blackmail me or post about it on Instagram. Romantic. You're smart, discreet, and hot. Don't act surprised. I opened the folder. Inside was a contract, legal, terrifying, and very real. My name, her name, a 20-day timeline. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. A list of expectations. No sex. No public fighting. No falling in love. This is ridiculous. You haven't said no. I'm still trying to understand if you've lost your mind. Probably. But that doesn't make the idea bad. You want me to fake a marriage for 3 weeks just so you can inherit your grandmother's money? I want you to fake a marriage so I don't lose everything I've built because a woman born in 1932 thinks being single is a disease. I looked at her. Really looked. Vanessa was a lot of things, cold, confident, infuriating, but desperate wasn't one of them. Until now. There was something in her eyes, just behind the bravado, that made my stomach flip. And after 20 days? I asked. We quietly divorce. No drama. No complications. And I give you $500,000. My mouth went dry. What?
Cash.
Wired the day the annulment is filed. You're paying me? It's compensation. It's bribery. It's business. And what if someone finds out it's fake? They won't. Vanessa. Look, she said, leaning forward, her voice dropping an octave. I don't trust many people, but I trust you. And I need this. Just 20 days. Be my wife. Pretend to tolerate me. Go to dinners. Smile for a few photos. We both walk away richer. I stared at her, at the confidence in her tone, at the tightness in her jaw, at the way her fingers twitched slightly, betraying the nerves she'd never admit. This is insane. It is. But I'd be set for life. You would. And we'd have rules. Strict ones. No real feelings. None. I exhaled slowly.
Fine.
I'll do it. Her lips parted. Seriously? Don't make me change my mind. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. God, I love when you make bad decisions. Shut up. I'm going to make you wear white. I swear to God. You're already glowing. I hate you. You're going to make a beautiful bride. She stood and smoothed her skirt. We have 3 days to prepare. I've already booked the officiant, picked out the apartment we'll move into, and hired a photographer. Of course you have. We start rehearsing our story tonight. Dinner at 8. Rehearsing? You need to learn how to look at me like you're madly in love. I've been practicing how to look like I hate you. That won't work. She winked. You're going to be so good at this. She walked out like she hadn't just flipped my entire life upside down. I stared at the contract for a long time before picking up a pen. I signed it. Fast forward 3 days and I was standing in front of a mirror wearing a cream blazer dress with my hair swept up, a diamond ring on my finger, and a fake smile frozen on my face. Vanessa stood beside me in a tailored white suit that fit her like a secret, her eyes dark and unreadable, her hand warm around mine. The officiant droned on. Her grandmother sat in the front row, beaming. Cameras clicked, and I said, "I do," with a voice that barely shook. Later, at the fake reception with champagne and soft jazz and too many eyes on us, Vanessa pulled me into a slow dance and whispered, "Day 1, Mrs. Cole. Don't push it. You smell amazing." That wasn't in the contract. Neither was this. She leaned in, her lips brushing just below my ear. My breath hitched. She smiled. "You're blushing." "I'm hot." "You're falling." "Not even close." "We'll see." She pulled back, but her hand lingered on my waist a second too long. My heart thudded, and in that moment I knew I was in trouble. The apartment was too perfect. That was my first thought as we stepped through the door, Vanessa's hand brushing the small of my back like a reflex. It was sleek, minimal, expensive. White marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, curated coffee table books with spines that had never been cracked. Like everything in Vanessa's life, it looked flawless on the outside. Sterile. Controlled. Cold. "Welcome home, darling," she said, dropping her keys into a crystal bowl by the entrance and kicking off her heels like she owned the universe. Which in some ways she did. "Stop saying that like it means something," I muttered, slipping out of my own shoes and glancing around. "We live here now. That makes it real enough. It makes it fake real. Like artificial sweetener. Technically sweet, but probably going to give us emotional cancer." "You're so dramatic when you're tired." "I'm dramatic because I just married someone who calls herself emotionally efficient. I take that as a compliment." "Of course you do." She tossed her jacket over the arm of the couch and turned to face me, arms crossed.
Okay.
"Ground rules." I groaned. "Didn't we already make a contract?" "This is the domestic addendum. You're insufferable, and you're already living with me. So, what does that say about you?" I narrowed my eyes. "Say the rules." "Fine." She held up one finger. "We keep up appearances in case anyone checks in. That means public affection, posting a few staged photos, attending events together. Grandma's people are nosy. I can fake smile with the best of them. You're a natural at pretending you don't hate me." "I'm not pretending." 2, she continued, ignoring me. "We share a bed. Not because I'm trying to seduce you, though I could, but because if anyone sees the apartment, it has to look authentic. 2 pillows. 1 bed. 1 happily married lesbian dream." I blinked. "We're sharing a bed?" "Unless you want me to sleep on the couch like a rejected rom-com husband. That wouldn't exactly sell the illusion."
Exactly.
"Which brings us to rule 3. She stepped closer, her voice dropping slightly. "No actual sex." Was that ever on the table? "I've seen the way you look at me, when you think I'm not paying attention. I look at you like I'm trying to survive you. Tomato, tomato." "And what's rule 4? "No catching feelings." She said it like a joke, but her eyes said something else. Serious. Sharp. Almost scared. I nodded slowly.
Right.
"No feelings." "I'm glad we're clear." "Crystal." She stared at me for a second too long, then turned away, walking down the hallway and calling over her shoulder. "Come see the bedroom. You're going to lose your mind." I followed her, not because I cared about the bedroom, but because I couldn't stop myself. She threw the door open dramatically. It was a hotel suite disguised as a home. King-size bed, velvet headboard, impossibly soft-looking sheets, and dimmable lights that made everything glow like honey. Jesus. I know, she said, grinning. Try not to fall in love with me just because I give good real estate. You give good something, that's for sure. She turned sharply, eyes wide. I blinked.
Shit.
Had I really said that out loud? I meant. You think I give good something? She repeated, voice low and amused. I meant the apartment. Too late. God. Day 1, and you're already flirting. That wasn't flirting. Then what was it? A mistake. Isn't that what this whole thing is? I didn't answer. Instead, I crossed the room and opened the closet. Half of it was already filled with my clothes, hung neatly by color, like she'd organized it herself. You went through my wardrobe? I had someone do it. I supervised. You own way too many black t-shirts, by the way. They go with everything. They go with nothing. I bought you a dress. You did what? We have brunch with Grandma on Sunday. She likes florals. You're wearing it. I turned to face her. You're unbelievable. And you married me. She stepped closer, now inches away. How do you plan on surviving 20 days of this? Mostly with wine and passive aggression. You're going to cave first. Cave to what? Wanting me. I snorted. You really believe that? I know it. She brushed past me, her shoulder grazing mine. Bathrooms to the left. I'll be back in 10. I need to take a call. Vanessa, but she was gone. I stood in the middle of the bedroom, heart pounding, and stared at the bed like it was a trap. Later that night, we lay side by side, fully clothed, a foot of space between us. The lights were off. The room was quiet. Too quiet. You breathing over there? She whispered. Barely. You scared? That you'll snore? A little. That I'll touch you in your sleep? Is that a warning or a promise? She laughed.
Soft. Real.
Then she went quiet. I thought she'd fallen asleep until she spoke again. I used to imagine getting married. Her voice was barely audible. But not like this. Then why me? I asked again. You could have picked anyone. But no one else would have looked at me the way you did when I asked. And how did I look at you? Like you saw through all the bullshit and still said yes. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't say anything. Minutes passed. Then her hand brushed mine under the sheets. Not a grab. Not a move. Just contact. Just warmth. I let it stay there. I let it mean nothing. And everything. By day 3, the lines were already starting to blur. Not with anything obvious. Not yet. But in the little things. In the way Vanessa handed me my coffee in the morning with a sleepy smile and no sarcasm. In how her hand settled naturally on the small of my back whenever someone looked at us in public. In how she started brushing my hair back behind my ear when she thought I was too distracted to notice. It wasn't fake. Not entirely. And that was the problem. That afternoon, we had our first event together. A charity gallery opening uptown. Perfect lighting, overpriced art, and enough socialites in pastel suits to make my skin itch. I'd worn the floral dress she insisted on, hating how good it looked on me, how tightly it fit at the waist, how it made her stare a little too long when I walked out of the bedroom. If you're going to keep looking at me like that, I'm going to start charging you, I said as I adjusted the hem. She didn't answer right away. Then, voice low, worth every penny. We smiled for photos, clinked champagne glasses, and let her grandmother's friends coo over how in love we looked. I let her touch me, her fingers on my waist, her hand resting on my thigh when we sat down, her mouth close to my ear when she whispered jokes no one else could hear. It was all pretend, but it didn't feel like pretending. By the time we got back to the apartment, I was dizzy. From the wine, from the tension, from her. Take these off for me? She asked, stepping out of her heels and gesturing to the zipper at the back of her dress. Your arms don't work? They work just fine. But I like how your hands feel on me. My mouth went dry. I stepped behind her, fingers fumbling at the zipper. The dress peeled open slowly, exposing the smooth line of her spine, inch by inch, until it stopped just above the curve of her lower back. I froze. Done, I said, but my voice didn't sound like mine. She turned around slowly, still holding the dress up by the front. We were close. Too close. I should go change, she said. Right. Unless you want to watch. Jesus, Vanessa. She smirked. Relax. You're so easy to mess with. You think this is messing with me? Isn't it?
No.
This is war. Dangerous word. She stepped around me, the brush of her shoulder against mine setting off something sharp and electric. I didn't breathe again until she was out of sight. 10 minutes later, she came out in sweats and a tank top, hair down, makeup gone, skin glowing. Casual. Intimate. Devastating. Want a glass of wine? She asked, already heading to the kitchen. Do I look like I can survive tonight without one? She laughed and poured 2 glasses. I took mine and curled onto the couch, trying not to look as restless as I felt. She sat beside me, legs folded under her, foot brushing my ankle. So, she said, sipping slowly. How do you think we're doing? At the marriage? At the illusion? Too well. That scares you. Doesn't it scare you? Yes. We were quiet for a moment. She turned toward me slightly. You're easy to be around, she said. You make this a less lonely than I thought it would be. You make it more confusing than I thought it would be. She tilted her head. What's confusing? The way you look at me. The way you touch me. You said you could handle it. I lied. Her smile faded. She put her wine down. Come here. What? Just come here. She reached for me, slow, like I was something fragile. I let her pull me closer, until my back was against her chest, and her arms wrapped around my waist. You're shaking, she whispered. You do that to me, I whispered back. Her lips brushed my shoulder, then my neck. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. We can't, I said. It's in the contract. We wrote the contract. We can rewrite it. Vanessa, tell me to stop. I didn't. I turned in her arms and kissed her. Hard. Desperate. Like I'd been holding it back for days and couldn't anymore. She kissed me like she needed it just as badly, hands in my hair, pulling me closer until we were a mess of limbs and breath and want. The world disappeared. It was just her. Her mouth. Her skin. Her hands under my shirt. Her body against mine like it belonged there. We didn't make it to the bedroom. We didn't even make it out of the living room. But just before we lost ourselves completely, she pulled back, forehead pressed to mine, eyes dark and serious. If we do this, she whispered, everything changes. Everything already has, I said. But she didn't move. And neither did I. We sat there, tangled together, breathing hard, the heat between us still burning. But we didn't cross that line. Not yet. She kissed me once more, softer this time. Then pulled away. Day 3, she said, voice hoarse. And I already want to break every rule I made. I closed my eyes. Me too. And that terrified me more than anything. The morning after we almost crossed the line felt heavier than it should have. Not because of guilt. Not even because of the rules. It was heavier because everything between us had shifted, and we both knew it. Vanessa didn't say anything when she woke up. She just stretched beside me, her shirt riding up slightly to reveal a sliver of skin I'd memorized in the dark last night. Her eyes found mine, and something passed between us. Heat, tension, regret, maybe all 3, and then she rolled out of bed without a word. I watched her disappear into the bathroom and heard the water start running. I sat there staring at the ceiling, still tasting her on my lips, still feeling the weight of her body pressed to mine, her fingers tangled in my hair, her breath against my skin. My body remembered everything. My heart remembered more. We didn't talk about it at breakfast. She made coffee, buttered toast, sliced strawberries with surgical precision while I pretended to read the news on my phone. The silence between us wasn't cold. It was charged. Alive. Fragile. Every time our eyes met, I had to look away first. It was too much. I couldn't read her. I didn't know if she regretted it, wanted more, or was just trying to make it to day 20 without imploding. We have that fundraiser tonight, she said finally, breaking the silence. Black tie. You remember? Of course. I had a dress delivered to the apartment. It's in your closet. You really don't like letting me pick my own clothes. I like seeing you in the things I imagine you in. I glanced up and she wasn't smirking. She was just watching me, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. I swallowed hard. Vanessa, I know. She looked away. We're not talking about last night. Maybe we should. Talking won't change what almost happened. No, but it might change what happens next. Do you want something to happen next? She asked quietly. I didn't answer, because I wasn't ready to say yes, but I also couldn't lie and say no. She stood, took her coffee, and disappeared into her office without another word. That night, the fundraiser was a blur of flashing lights, velvet ropes, whispered compliments, and too many champagne flutes. She wore black. Simple, sleek, devastating. I wore the dress she picked, a deep wine color that clung to my body like it had been stitched just for this moment. When she saw me step out of the bedroom, her lips parted, but no words came out. Just one slow exhale. Don't say anything, I warned. Too late, she murmured. We drove in silence, but her hand stayed on my thigh the entire time. At the event, we smiled and played the perfect couple. Her arm looped around my waist, her lips brushed my cheek for the cameras, and every time someone asked how newlywed life was, she'd say something like, even better than I imagined, without blinking. And yet, behind every touch, every look, there was something else brewing. Something neither of us knew how to hide anymore. When we got home, I kicked off my heels and turned to say something, anything, but she was already there, standing in the living room with that look again. The one that made my knees go weak. I can't do this anymore, she said, voice low. What? Pretend I'm not losing my mind every time you look at me like that. Like what? Like you want me, but you're scared of what that means. My breath caught. You said no feelings. I was wrong. She crossed the room in 3 steps. I was wrong about everything. This was supposed to be fake. Controlled.
Clean.
But you. Her fingers brushed my wrist. You undo me. Every single day. Vanessa, you want me to. I know you do. I feel it. So, stop fighting it. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. I grabbed her shirt and pulled her in. The kiss wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was all fire and frustration, mouths colliding, hands hungry and desperate. I couldn't get close enough. Couldn't stop. She lifted me, walked us to the bedroom, dropped me on the bed with a thud that made my breath hitch. Clothes came off in pieces. Her mouth burned a path down my neck, across my collarbone, over the swell of my chest, and lower. I gasped her name. She smiled against my skin like she already knew how far gone I was. Her hands were everywhere. Her touch was demanding, reverent, tender, and relentless. She kissed me like she needed it to breathe, like if we stopped now, she'd fall apart. And when she slid down between my thighs and made me come undone with her name on my lips, I stopped pretending to. We collapsed after, limbs tangled, skin slick, breath shared. The world outside didn't exist. Just her. Just this. We broke every rule, I whispered. I know. What now? Now we make new ones. She turned to face me, fingers trailing down my arm. Rule 1. I get to touch you like that whenever I want. Dangerous. Rule 2. You stop pretending this isn't real. That might be harder. I'll help you. She kissed my shoulder. And rule 3. I asked. You don't run when this starts to feel like love. I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't scared anymore. She was open.
Raw. Mine.
I think it already does. Good. She smiled. Because I already do. The sunlight pouring through the windows was soft and golden, the kind of light that made everything feel too tender to touch. I blinked slowly, adjusting to the quiet warmth of the room and the way Vanessa's arm was still draped across my waist like she couldn't bear to let me go, even in her sleep. Her breath tickled the back of my neck, steady and calm, and her legs were tangled with mine beneath the covers, anchoring me in a way that felt terrifyingly right. I could feel every inch of her pressed against me. Her skin, still warm from the night before. Her heartbeat, slow and steady against my back. The way she fit against me, so naturally, so easily, like this wasn't the first time we'd ended up like this. Like this wasn't supposed to be fake. I try to keep my breathing even, like I wasn't awake yet, like I wasn't rethinking every second of what we did last night and what it meant. Because if I let myself think too hard, I knew I'd spiral.
This wasn't the plan.
The plan was clear. No sex, no feelings, no lines crossed. But we'd crossed them. No, shattered them, and now I was lying in a bed that wasn't mine with a woman who wasn't really mine either, even though it felt like she was. I thought maybe she'd wake up and pull away, that she'd laugh it off, brush it aside, call it a moment of weakness and go back to being sharp and untouchable. But she didn't. Instead, she pressed a lazy kiss to my shoulder and murmured, "You're overthinking again." I froze. "I can feel it," she said, voice thick with sleep. "Your body gets tense. You try to breathe quieter. Like I can't tell the difference between asleep you and spiraling you." I turned slightly, enough to see her face. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes half-lidded. She looked completely unguarded, completely real. And God help me, she was beautiful. "I didn't expect this," I whispered. "You mean last night?" "I mean how much it scared me that I didn't want it to stop." She exhaled, eyes on mine. "Then don't let it. This wasn't part of the deal." "Screw the deal." Her fingers brushed my cheek. "Let's call it a new clause. One where we have sex whenever we want." I tried to tease, but the words came out softer than I meant. "One where we stop pretending that it didn't mean something," she said. "Because it did. You know it did." I closed my eyes. "Vanessa, you don't have to say it back. Not yet. But I need you to know that for me, last night wasn't just about crossing a line. It was about finding out that I don't want this to be temporary anymore." The words lodged in my throat. I wanted to believe her. But fear is louder than hope. I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around me. "You're good at getting what you want. You're charming and calculated and impossible to resist. But I don't want to be just another move in your game." She sat up too, her eyes steady on mine. "I'm not playing with you. You said that at the beginning. And I meant it. I didn't know it would feel like this. That you'd look at me, and I'd want to give you everything." My chest ached. "Then why are we still pretending? Why are we still calling this a deal?" "Because I'm scared too," she admitted. "Because this was supposed to be safe. Controlled. Now I look at you, and I forget where the performance ends." I didn't know what to say, so I kissed her instead. Slow, soft, nothing like last night. Her hand came up to cut my jaw, her thumb brushing my cheek, and when we broke apart, we were both breathless. "We should probably eat," I murmured. "You're deflecting. I'm hungry. You're running. And you're impossible. And yet here you are." We laughed, quiet and breathy, and climbed out of bed together. We moved around the kitchen like we'd been doing it for years. She pulled out eggs, I made coffee. She toasted bread, I sliced fruit. Everything between us had shifted, but the air still buzzed with something familiar. Something safe. She handed me a mug, and our fingers brushed, lingering just a second too long. "What do we tell people if they notice?" I asked. "About what?" "About us." "That we're figuring it out," she said. "That we're learning how to want something real." "And if your grandmother finds out we weren't actually married at first?" "She won't care," Vanessa said, and for the first time, I believed her. We ate together on the balcony, sun on our skin, the city below us humming like background music. She told me about her week, about a gallery she wanted to take me to, about a dog she saw on the street that reminded her of me, small and feisty and impossible to ignore. I told her about a dream I had where we were married for real, and she got quiet for a moment before reaching for my hand. "What if we stopped calling this a 20-day marriage?" she said. "What if we just called it ours?" I blinked at her. "You want to keep pretending forever?"
"No," she said.
"I want to stop pretending altogether." My heart thudded. "And what happens on day 20? "We celebrate our first fake anniversary," she said with a grin. Then I take you to bed and show you how very real it is." I laughed, but it cracked slightly at the edges. "You're serious?"
"Deadly."
I looked at her, this woman who had turned my life upside down with a contract and a smirk, and I realized I didn't want to go back to a life without her in it. Not even a little. I squeezed her hand. "Then we need a new plan. A better one? A real one." "I'm listening." We stop counting days. Done. We stop pretending this isn't what it is. Already stopped. And we start acting like we're in something real. She leaned in, kissed me once, twice, smiled against my mouth. We already are. The first time we made love after we stopped pretending didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like a quiet, inevitable arrival. There was no rush, no clumsy undressing, no biting urgency like before. It was slow, deliberate, devastating in its tenderness. Vanessa lit a single candle on the dresser and turned off every other light in the apartment, letting the flame flicker softly across her bare skin. The shadows danced on the curves of her body as she crossed the room to where I stood, motionless, breathless, watching her like I'd never seen anything more beautiful. And maybe I hadn't. "Come here," she whispered, not like a command this time, but a plea. I stepped into her arms like I was stepping out of my own skin. Her hand slid under my shirt, lifting it inch by inch, until it was gone, and I stood in front of her in nothing but trembling honesty. She kissed my collarbone, slow and reverent, her lips moving down to the swell of my chest, her breath warm and shaky like she couldn't believe she was allowed to touch me like this. I let her see everything. My hesitation, my longing, my fear, and she kissed them all like she was promising to stay. When we fell onto the bed, it wasn't rushed or loud. It was quiet, like a secret, the kind you only tell when there's nothing left to hide. She hovered above me, hair falling around our faces like a curtain, and whispered, "Are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything. This feels different, because it is. She kissed me then, deeper than before, her hands mapping my body like she was learning a new language. Her touch was patient, intentional, and when she finally slipped her hand between my thighs, she didn't rush. She explored. She listened. She learned. And when I cried out her name, she kissed the sound like it was sacred. I returned every touch, every sigh. I memorized the places that made her gasp, the way her back arched when I whispered against her skin, the way her fingers clenched in the sheets when I kissed the inside of her thigh. She was undone.
So was I.
We moved together like we already belonged. Like every other night had been a dress rehearsal for this one. And when it was over, when we lay tangled in the quiet aftermath, skin to skin, breath sinking back into rhythm, I felt something shift. Not just in the room.
In me.
In her. In us. "You're quiet," I said softly, tracing lazy patterns on her stomach. She exhaled. "I don't know how to be this version of myself." "Which version?" "The one who lets someone in." I looked up at her. Her eyes were distant, focused on some point on the ceiling like it might offer her an escape. "Vanessa, I'm used to having control. In everything. But with you, I don't. You don't have to control this. I want to, but I can't. And that terrifies me." I shifted, resting my head against her chest. "You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to lead this. We can walk together. One step at a time. What if I screw it up? Then we figure it out. Together." She was quiet for a long time. Then her arm wrapped tighter around me, like I was something she couldn't let slip away. "You made this real," she whispered. "I didn't mean to. But you did. Do you regret it?" "Not even a little." She kissed the top of my head. "I feel safer with you than I've ever felt with anyone." That made my heart ache. I lifted my head to look at her, brushing hair from her face. "Then let's not run from it. Okay. Let's build something that doesn't disappear when the contract ends." Her eyes searched mine. "You really want that?" "I want you." She pulled me into another kiss, slower this time, like a promise, and whispered against my lips, "Then you've got me." We stayed like that for a long time, talking in whispers, sharing things we'd never said out loud before. I told her about my first heartbreak, how I still sometimes flinch when people raise their voices, how I was scared that loving her would swallow me whole. She told me about the time her father forgot her birthday, how she stopped expecting people to stay, how she'd built walls so high she forgot what it was like to be touched without flinching. And then she touched me like she never wanted to stop. And I let her. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, limbs tangled, breath shared. And sometime in the middle of the night, when I stirred awake, I felt her murmur something against my skin. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I heard it again. Barely a whisper. I think I love you. My eyes stayed closed. My body still. But my heart screamed. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I'd fallen too. I woke before her. The apartment was still wrapped in that hushed morning silence, the kind that made everything feel fragile and sacred. Light filtered in through the curtains, spilling across the bed in long, golden stripes. Vanessa's arm was still around my waist, her breath warm against the back of my neck, her body curved into mine like she belonged there. And maybe she did. Maybe she had all along. I stayed still, not wanting to wake her, not wanting to break whatever magic we'd created the night before. But then my heart thudded with the memory of what she'd whispered against my skin, half asleep, unaware I was even listening. I think I love you. It hadn't been loud. It hadn't been dramatic. It was the kind of confession that slips out when the guards are down, when the body tells the truth before the mind can stop it. And now I couldn't stop replaying it. Over and over. Did she mean it? Would she remember saying it? What would happen if I brought it up? Or worse, what if she didn't say it at all, and I just heard what I wanted to hear? I turned slightly in her arms, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, the way her lashes fluttered in sleep, the softness of her lips parted just slightly. She looked so unguarded, so human, so not the Vanessa Cole I met that day in my office with a contract and a mission and zero intentions of falling in love. My fingers brushed her arm lightly. She stirred. Her eyes blinked open, slow and lazy, and when they found mine, she smiled. Morning. Morning, I said quietly. Her hand slid up to my cheek, thumb brushing my skin. You're staring. Just thinking. Dangerous. Always. She leaned in and kissed me, soft, familiar, warm. Like we'd been doing this forever. What's going on in that beautiful head of yours? She murmured. I hesitated. Do you remember what you said last night? Her eyes searched mine. Then something flickered. A pause. A hitch in her breath. What did I say? I didn't answer. I watched her face shift, realization dawning. She sat up slightly, pulling the blanket with her. I said it, didn't I? I sat up too. You did. Shit. So, you do remember. I didn't mean to say it like that. Not then. Not when you were sleeping. You weren't supposed to say it at all? I didn't plan it. It just slipped out. My chest ached. Do you regret it? No, she said quickly.
God, no.
I didn't want to scare you. You didn't scare me. You're lying. I'm terrified, I admitted. But not because you said it. Because I felt it too. And I didn't know what to do with that. She reached for my hand under the covers, threading her fingers with mine. Then let's just be scared together. We sat like that for a long time, letting the silence speak for us. Finally, I leaned in and kissed her again, deeper this time, letting the truth in her words settle into my bones. After a while, we got up and made breakfast, moving around each other like we'd done it 100 times before. She toasted bagels. I made coffee. She stole the jam I liked and smeared it on both halves of her bagel just to annoy me. I shoved her with my hip, and she laughed. But beneath the playfulness, something softer pulsed between us. Every glance lingered. Every touch felt electric. When we sat down to eat, she reached across the table and took my hand again. So, she said slowly, what happens now? We stop counting days. That's your answer to everything. Because it's true. She smiled, then looked away. I never thought I'd feel like this again. Like what? Like I could trust someone. Like I could let my guard down and not be punished for it. I'm not here to hurt you, Vanessa. I know. That's what scares me. I stood, walked around the table, and pulled her up into my arms. You don't have to be scared of me. I'm scared of how much I want you. Want me, then? Her lips met mine with a need that was more than lust. It was layered, heavy,
Real.
We didn't make it to the couch. We barely made it out of the kitchen. She pushed me against the counter, her hands on my hips, her mouth hungry against mine. And when she lifted me onto the cool marble surface, I let my legs wrap around her, pulling her closer, letting everything else disappear. We moved like we knew each other. Like we weren't learning anything new, but remembering what had always been there. Afterward, as we lay curled together in a sun-drenched pile on the floor, she whispered, I meant it. Meant what? That I love you. I turned my head to look at her. Good. Why? Because I think I'm falling in love with you too. Her smile was soft, almost shy. Think. I kissed her again, slow and deep, then pulled back just enough to whisper, I know. Vanessa was gone when I woke up. Not in the sense that she disappeared. Her scent still lingered on the pillow beside me, her phone still buzzed occasionally on the nightstand, and the necklace she always wore was resting in the little ceramic dish she kept near the sink. But she wasn't there, and that absence echoed through the apartment louder than her footsteps ever could. It was the first time I'd woken up without her in days, and I hated how quickly my chest tightened with the loss. A note lay folded on the kitchen counter.
Call at the gallery.
Back before lunch. Left you the last croissant. See how much I love you?
V.
I smiled despite the dull ache building in my throat. We hadn't defined what we were doing anymore. There was no countdown, no strict contract, no rulebook. Just feelings. Just us. And somehow, that made it scarier. I made coffee, toasted the croissant she'd left me, and sat at the table in silence, trying to ignore the growing pit in my stomach that whispered she was too good to be true. That this was all temporary, no matter how real it had started to feel. That maybe I'd fallen harder, faster, and I was already too far gone. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, just sold 2 pieces. Be proud of your wife. I texted back. So proud. Do I get a reward? Her reply was instant. Vanessa, I can think of a few ways to thank you properly. I felt heat rise in my cheeks and quickly typed, You're lucky I'm alone right now. She sent back a winking emoji and then nothing for a while. I tried to focus on work, but failed miserably. I kept checking the time, counting the minutes until she came home, until I could touch her again, see her eyes, hear her voice in real life instead of echoing in my head. I missed her more than I should have after only a few hours apart, and that terrified me more than I wanted to admit. Just after noon, the door opened and she walked in, holding 2 iced coffees and a bag that smelled like cinnamon. I brought peace offerings, she said, kicking the door closed behind her. And sugar. I didn't answer. I just crossed the room and kissed her.
Hard.
Desperate. Like I needed her to quiet the thoughts spiraling in my head. She kissed me back instantly, dropping everything on the table so she could pull me closer. Her hands gripped my hips, my neck, my hair, and I let myself get lost in her mouth. Whoa, she whispered when we finally came up for air. Hi. Hi, I breathed. You missed me. More than I should have. That's not possible. I took a step back, suddenly unsure. Vanessa, what are we doing? Her brow furrowed. What do you mean?
This. Us.
We say we're not counting days, but I feel like I'm waiting for a shoe to drop. Like at any moment, you're going to tell me it was all fun, thanks for the memories, and walk away. Her face softened instantly. She reached for my hands.
Hey.
I'm not going anywhere. But you've done this before. Relationships.
People.
And they've all ended. Because they weren't you. That hit me square in the chest. You say that so easily. It's not easy. I've just never meant anything more. What if I love you more than you love me? Then I'll spend every day catching up. Vanessa, no, she said firmly, cupping my face. I don't want to live in fear of this ending. I want to live in the middle of it. With you. My throat tightened. You really mean that? I want to take you out on real dates. I want to stop pretending we're pretending. I want to tell people you're mine, and not have to follow it up with a wink and a joke. I want to wake up next to you, and not count the days, not even think about counting. I just want the rest of whatever this is, however long it lasts, and I want it with you. You're going to ruin me, I whispered. Good, she said, then kissed me again. That afternoon, we lay on the couch with her head in my lap, her fingers lazily tracing patterns on my thigh. Tell me something you've never told anyone, she said softly. Anything? Anything. I hesitated, then said, when I was 12, I wrote a letter to myself and buried it in my backyard. I promised future me that by 30 I'd be married, have a dog, and never cry over people who didn't love me back. And I'm not married, I don't have a dog, and I'm trying not to cry right now. She sat up, brushing hair behind my ear. I love you back. You don't have to cry alone anymore. I kissed her, slow and deep, like I could pour every broken piece of myself into her mouth and she'd hold them all together with her hands. That night, we made love again.
Slower. Deeper.
Not because we had to, not because it was passionate or urgent, but because it was safe. Because it was home. And when we collapsed together in the dark, sweaty and breathless and tangled, she whispered, let's never stop choosing this. I whispered back, never. But something deep in my chest warned me, things this perfect didn't last forever. And part of me was already bracing for the fall. It started with distance.
Subtle.
Almost imperceptible. Vanessa still kissed me in the morning. She still brought me coffee and stole the covers and traced lazy circles on my skin when we lay in bed. But something had shifted. I felt it in the way she hesitated before speaking, in the way her eyes darted away when I said something too honest. I told myself it was nothing. We were fine. We were happy. Weren't we? But when you've been pretending for so long, it's hard to know when the act ends and the truth begins. On day 10, halfway through the contract we no longer mentioned, she came home late. No warning. No text. Just silence until the sound of the door opening jolted me from sleep. I sat up, heart racing, watching her drop her bag by the door like her body weighed more than it used to. Sorry, she muttered, kicking off her heels. The gallery ran late. You could have called. I didn't think you'd wait up. Of course I waited up. She didn't answer. Just disappeared into the bathroom, and a moment later I heard the shower turn on. I stared at the spot she'd just stood in, heart pounding, chest tightening. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what. The next morning, she was gone again before I woke. No note this time. No coffee. Just a cold, empty apartment and a sinking feeling in my stomach I couldn't shake. I tried to distract myself with work, errands, cleaning, anything to keep from checking my phone every 2 minutes. Nothing. No calls. No texts. No Vanessa. When she finally walked in that night, I was already sitting on the couch, hands clenched in my lap. She froze when she saw me. Hey, she said cautiously. Hey. You're mad. I'm scared. That got her attention. She sat across from me, elbows on her knees, fingers laced. Talk to me. I don't know how to do this, I said quietly. I've never been in something that feels like it could break me. Then let's not break it. I don't know if we're even still holding it together. You are everything I want, she said instantly, voice low and sharp. I don't want anyone else. I don't want to go back to being alone. But I don't know how to be in this and not screw it up. Then screw it up with me. Her breath caught. I don't want to lose you. Then stop disappearing. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice cracking, of how much I need this. How much I need you. I've never let anyone this close before, and it's overwhelming. Do you want out? No, then let me in. She crossed the room and knelt in front of me, resting her forehead against mine. I'm sorry, she whispered. I've been trying to control something that isn't supposed to be controlled. I cupped her face. You don't have to hold it all together. I'm here. We're in this together. Her lips met mine, slow and sweet, and when she pulled me into her lap on the floor, I held her like I never wanted to let go. We stayed there for a long time, not speaking, just breathing each other in. That night, we didn't make love like the other nights. It wasn't slow or soft. It was desperate.
Raw.
Like we needed to prove something to ourselves, to each other, to the fear still clawing at the edges of what we had. Her hands were all over me, hungry and sure. My mouth on her skin was a promise I didn't know how to put into words. We clung to each other like the world might disappear if we stopped touching. And afterward, tangled in sweat-damp sheets, she whispered, "I'm in love with you." "I know," I whispered back. "Me too." We fell asleep like that, skin to skin, heart to heart. And in the dark, I finally let myself believe it was real. The morning of day 20 came softly, like the universe was trying not to disturb us. I woke to the sound of rain against the window, Vanessa's arm wrapped tightly around my waist, her breath warm against the curve of my neck. She hadn't let go of me all night. I hadn't wanted her to. I didn't move right away. I just lay there, memorizing the way her fingers were curled around mine beneath the covers, the way her body fit so perfectly against my back, the rhythm of her chest rising and falling with mine. It had been 20 days. 20 days since she'd walked into my office with a ridiculous proposal and that cocky, dangerous smile. 20 days since I signed a contract I didn't understand. 20 days since pretending somehow turned into the most honest thing I'd ever known. She stirred behind me, then kissed my shoulder before her voice broke the quiet. "It's today." I rolled onto my back so I could see her face. "It is." Her eyes searched mine. "How do you feel?" "Like we should tear up that contract." She smiled, but there was a flicker of uncertainty beneath it. "I keep thinking about how this started, what it was supposed to be, and then I look at you, and I can't imagine letting it end." "It doesn't have to. But technically, today was supposed to be the last day. The end of the deal." "Then, let's end the deal." "You want to break it?" "I want to replace it." I slid out of bed and crossed the room, pulling a drawer open and retrieving the worn contract we'd both signed what felt like a lifetime ago. I held it out to her. This was a lie that became the most truthful thing I've ever felt. "Let's destroy it. Together." She climbed out of bed, wrapped in the sheet, her eyes never leaving mine. I handed her the paper. She looked at it for a second, then reached for a pen from the nightstand. In bold, black ink, she scribbled across the front, "We don't need this anymore." I took it from her, folded it once, and tore it clean down the middle. "So what now?" she asked, voice quieter, vulnerable in a way I rarely saw. "Now we write something new. Together? Always." She crossed the room and kissed me, slow and deep, her fingers tangling in my hair. "Marry me," she whispered. I pulled back just enough to see her face. "We already did that." "No, I mean really. No contract. No deadline. Just you and me and something that's real." My heart stopped, then raced, then melted completely. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "You want to marry the woman you tricked into a fake wedding?" "I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I was never faking anything." "Then yes," I breathed. "Yes, Vanessa. 1,000 times yes." She laughed, kissed me again and then again, until we were both laughing and crying and breathless, wrapped in each other like a promise. The next few weeks passed in a blur of planning and quiet joy. We told her grandmother the truth. Well, parts of it. That we'd rushed into things, that it hadn't started the way it should have, but that we were in love now.
Truly.
Fully. And that we wanted to do it right. Her grandmother had just smiled knowingly and said, "Sometimes you have to fake it to find what's real." Our real wedding was small. Just us and a few friends. Intimate.
Honest.
The opposite of what we'd started with. I wore a simple white dress. She wore a navy blue suit with a white rose pinned to her lapel. We held hands the entire time. When the officiant asked if she took me as her wife, she didn't just say yes. She said, "I have since the first time." She told me no. When we kissed, the world disappeared. And when we got home, when she carried me over the threshold and whispered, "You're mine now," I smiled and whispered back, "I always was." Later that night, curled against her under the same blankets we'd tangled ourselves in for weeks, I kissed her shoulder and said, "I'm glad you made me sign that stupid contract." She laughed, pulling me tighter. "I'm glad you broke every rule. I'd break them all again for this. For us. For us." Outside, the rain had started again, soft and steady, like a blessing. And inside, we lay wrapped in everything we never expected to find, everything we'd built with no script, no rules, no deadlines. Just love.
Real. Wild. Ours.
Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.